Hello, everyone. Welcome to Maddox Digital Plus Customer Success Summit. You are currently watching the Power Duo, how digital CS and CS ops work together to drive scalable impact. I'm excited to introduce our speaker, and as I introduce them, I'm going to have them answer our icebreaker question: what is your biggest digital addiction? Please welcome Justin Neal, founder and principal consultant at Success Wave Solutions, LLC.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to join and to share this session with you. So my biggest digital addiction, I would actually say, is Apple Music. I really love to treat playlists like personality tests, curating the vibe, even if it's just for me. I love Apple Music and I think it's great. The sound quality is great and I really enjoy using it. So I would say that's my favorite digital addiction.
Awesome, Justin. You can share your screen and get started whenever you'd like.
Great. Thanks. All right. Hey, everyone. I'm Justin Neal. I focus on the intersection of CS ops and digital CS, most recently at companies like VMware, IBM, and UKG. And now through my work at Success Wave Insights, so I do some thought leadership, share content around that. So very excited to show you today how these two functions, digital CS and CS ops, aren't just adjacent. They're essential together if you want to scale with impact. So I want to share that with you and hopefully give you some takeaways, some things to kind of help build your CS ops motion, your digital CS motion together and scale with scalable impact. So let's start here with the tension we're all facing in CS right now, because it's really what makes this power duo so critical. So really the challenge right now and today, and I think in 2025 moving forward, is scaling without losing the human touch. So all CSMs, CS teams, even CS ops people feel this, right? It's the pressure to scale, more customers, higher expectations, fewer resources. So having to build that without losing the personal relationship driven feel, right? The true things that make CS valuable for what they can bring. So having to stay human with personalized touch, strategic engagement, and true relationship building. So how do you balance this? How do you manage this? How do you do this in a way that's going to work for you, for your organization, and line this up in a way that's going to be effective and help your customers in the best way possible? So that's where the partnership between digital CS and CS ops becomes essential. So let's define this duo. Let's define what these two functions are and what they do, right? So on one hand, we have digital CS. So digital CS automates engagement. They deliver at scale and they run programs. Of course, they do a lot more than that, but truly their function in role in companies is to deliver that scalable solution and build personalized emotions at scale and ensure they're managing that set of customers, right? CS ops, on their hand, they build systems, right? They build platforms, they build repeatable, scalable systems. They enable insights with reports, health scores, dashboards, all those good things that the CS teams use. And they truly are there to support growth. So supporting the growth of customers, the growth of the CS teams, and kind of building the building blocks to be able to do that effectively. So it's certainly not that was one before the other. I think both certainly are driving impact, and the most impactful way is to build these and strategically kind of frame these together. So here's an opportunity here. So let's talk about what happens when these two functions align, right? So when think about them separately, you have some disconnected systems, CS motion's kind of sitting silo, maybe digital CS is kind of working in its own world. Engagement can be reactive. You don't really have a true automated process or truly scalable solution set up to meet your goals, right? It's disconnected systems and again, reactive engagement. But once they are aligned, you unify those goals, you unify that data, you build a seamless digital journey, and you build scalable and personal CS. It's not just about being more efficient, it's more impactful. not for just the CS team, but for the customers as well. So shared goals, systems talking to each other, that's how to build a truly effective power duo. So let's talk about this in action. So I've got some real world experience I want to share, some companies that I worked for and had the ability to kind of see and build this kind of firsthand. So I've got three different examples here at companies that I've built this and I kind of seen these results. So IBM, right? We were segmenting customers. We were using ARR, usage and life cycle stages. So specifically using something like a life cycle segment to automate the journey. That's something that we built, we set up at IBM, and we're able to use that life cycle stage to truly build impactful and meaningful automation. Moving to UKG, deploying journeys based on data. So at UKG, we used community data to trigger nurture flows based on that. So emails, in-app, community. So some of the data sources that you have, taking advantage of those, pulling those into your systems, and then building automation based on that. That was something we saw and was effective at UKG. And then VMware, analyzing that feedback, usage, engagement, sentiment, some data to build predictions. So using predictive data to build churn, prevent churn via automation, via automated health scores. So that's something we built at scale at VMware. So being able to use the data that we got, pulling that into the systems that we had, building journeys, building automation based on that, and tying that back to preventing churn. So these are things where the CS Ops team and the digital CS team worked in sync, understood the goals, understood the process, and were able to truly drive and build impact, right? At IBM, it was early stage. It was a few years ago, right, when digital CS wasn't necessarily defined the way it is now, but it was the idea of building a life cycle driven journey to take them through that stage, through those different stages to their renewals. And we were able to build and iterate as we went. So that was truly an effective way to build that. At UKG, again, it was around community data. It was true user and customer data that we used to trigger those flows. And then at VMware, again, we were kind of at that advanced stage where we had predictive data to prevent churn. So let's talk about how this works, right? Where does CS Ops power digital CS? This is how Ops actually directly fuels a digital CS team. So it starts with systems, right? So you've got a system in place. You likely have a CSP already, and you have people that are working in it that are the administrators or architects in the system. So you've got Gainsight, Salesforce, Pendo, WalkMe. So lots of tools and processes in place here to ensure those systems are up and running. And then you move to the next stage, which is automation. So triggered communications, in-app messages, alerts. So that's done. Once the system's in place, you have people managing that. You got the automation in place to then truly build and uh, drive those events. So once you get automation in place and you have them kind of running, then you look at the next phase, and that would be insights. Those insights are going to start flowing in. Health scores, usage trends, churn risks, churn flags. So you can start seeing what the results of your automation is. How is it impacting your customers? How is it impacting health? How is it impacting renewals, right? So being able to get to that point means you're already, you know, all the way through to that part of the journey. And then the last phase here, we'll call it outcomes, right? So seeing those retention numbers, seeing that expansion grow, seeing net revenue retention grow, seeing CSAT scores increase. So those are ways you can see the true impact of what's happening. And this is great for both CS ops and digital CS, because on the CS ops side, you're seeing all the work you've done, all the things you've built, all the automation you put in place, all of the insights that you're building, and all the things that you're putting in action are now leading to an outcome. And the most powerful thing that you can do in CS ops is tie all of your work to those outcomes, to retention, to expansion. Say, we built these systems, we built these automation pieces, we built these campaigns, we built these alerts. Now we're seeing that is leading to less churn. It's leading to more expansion, right? So for CS ops, this is the way that they can truly show and truly drive and truly build their story about how valuable they are and how significant what they're doing is. For digital CS, it's the same ideas. Now you have outcomes to tie this to. So you helped the CS ops team build this. You helped them show you kind of what the automation would look like. You help get your customer base in a true automation step. And now you're seeing the outcome there. So now your customers are renewing. You have less churn. So the outcomes are wins for everyone, right? So both digital CS and CS ops are working towards the same goals. That's going to what I'm going to talk about next in the framework. But that's going to be key here in ensuring these two systems and functions work together seamlessly. So let's talk about that framework. And if you take anything away from this, this is the one slide I certainly want you to be able to take away and to apply to your teams, your organization, and the things you're doing now. So this is a step-by-step approach you can take to align for what we call scalable, drivable impact. So let's take this kind of step by step. So first thing is you define those shared goals. CS ops, I think one thing that's hard about CS ops is some of those goals are less clear. Maybe they're less defined. So maybe you want to understand what is the CS ops team working towards? What are those goals for the larger CS org and how do they tie to CS ops? And what do those goals look like and how do you share those goals with digital CS? Is it NRR? Is it less, less retention? Is it onboarding and NPS scores? Is it usage data going up by month and by quarter? What are the goals, metrics, KPIs that both digital CS and CS ops can see, can work towards, and can build motions to meet and exceed? So again, in CS ops, sometimes it's not that we're tied to that revenue specifically, right? Or the teams are not necessarily looking to prevent churn, and that's evaluated in their performance. But as part of the overall CS team, it's the idea of we're all working towards those same goals. So the next step is you're mapping your ownership here, and that's really important because some organizations have different ways of owning different things in this space, and I think especially in the ops versus digital kind of ownership, it's very important to map this specifically. So I've worked at different companies where I was on the ops side, but I was building digital campaigns, right? So as part of ops, we built that inside Gainsight, right? We built using Journey Orchestrator, and I was a part of the ops team. So my role, my function was very much ops related, but the day-to-day tasks that I was doing were directly impacting digital CS. So that's kind of one aspect there, one version of this I've seen. I've seen another version where digital CS is actually in Gainsight, has some access to be able to build Journey Orchestrator campaigns, right? So maybe Ops is doing the enablement, and maybe I'm training the digital CSMs and the digital CS leaders, but they're the ones actually doing the building. They know how at this point to run a query builder, to build a scalable, a step-by-step process and to launch those campaigns. And then maybe they're relying on Ops to build the reporting, right? So understanding that those lanes and how you kind of work together in that way is going to be critical. Looking at the third point here, we're syncing on systems, data sources, and segmentation. So when we have different systems that do different things, sometimes it can be challenging to understand what you're doing with which system. Um, at some companies, you have a single source, a Gainsight or a CSP, but others it's, hey, we have one tool to manage our revenue and have our CSMs going day to day and add CTAs, things like that. But when it comes to the digital touches and motions, we're using a different tool. See, customer marketing has a tool they want to use, and we can't move off of that, right? So understanding how that works, what the systems look like, what kind of the different functions with those systems are is very, very critical. And I think that's also something I'll talk about in the next slide with pitfalls and potentially things that you can try to avoid. But thinking on this kind of framework, you want to make sure that the systems are synced. It's very clear who's doing what and what sort of data goes between those systems and that segmentation. And again, this is likely something that CS ops is going to have to build, drive, and understand, but digital CS is also going to be involved in ensuring they know how to get what they need done. So the fourth step here, we're going to talk about launching a play. And so ideally at this point, you're all working towards the same goals. You know who owns what, and you know which system to build it in. And so now it's, hey, let's give it a try. Let's launch some plays. And I say start small because to me, this is where some teams Okay, so this is where I left off. We're in the framework here, and we're kind of digging into systems, data, launching our plays, right? So we want to make sure that we have a play. We're going to start small. We're going to build something that's going to be sustainable, that we can evaluate, that we can kind of get a quick win in here. So something like a renewal play or an onboarding play or something that you have reliable and consistent data that you can use. And I talk about this a little bit in a podcast that I just did with Alex, who's another speaker coming up at the event today. So if you get a chance to give that a listen, please do. So, and then at the last stage here is about reviewing the results and iterating. So, say you launch this campaign, say you launch a maybe 90-day renewal campaign and you're seeing some engagement, but not enough. So you go back and maybe say, oh, maybe we should have launched that earlier. So maybe you push it back to a 180-day campaign or something like that, right? So it's all about building the framework, launching, and then reviewing and iterating. And I saw this as successfully at several companies that I work for. So definitely a great way to take away things you can do to do that. So let's talk a little bit about common pitfalls and how to avoid them. So the first thing here is about over automation without context. And I think this is something that it's easy to say, we got a tool, we started building, let's automate everything, right? But then that kind of leads to a potential issue of too much data, too many automation, CTAs popping up everywhere, too many customers responding to a shared inbox, and you don't know what to do with that, right? So the idea of automation without context is a real challenge. It's something that I've seen, especially at some of the larger companies I worked for. So I'd encourage you to think about personalization and the way you can build it without it being noise, right? So that's important. The second point here is about tool sprawl. So platforms don't necessarily mean more impact unless they're aligned. So thinking about using one tool for the CSP and then a different tool for customer marketing and then a different tool for your in-app engagement, right? It can be difficult to manage everything with multiple tools. So uh, there can be a reason, a purpose why you're using different tools for different things, but you need a strategy around that. And what we did at companies like VMware is build a kind of a larger data repository to then pull all that from one place. But that takes strategy, that takes work, that takes external teams to be able to do. So being able to build tool sprawl or to build a tool without sprawl, just making sure they're aligned, that's key. The third bullet here is about metric misalignment. So if digital and CS aren't working towards the same KPIs, it's hard to gain traction and to continue to work on the same path. So and I've seen this happen, right, where sometimes ops is working on something, but digital has their own kind of initiatives and things they're working on. And if you're not aware of what their priorities are, what those metrics are, how you can work towards that, that can be a challenge. So ensuring that metrics are aligned, ownership is clear, who's doing what, how they're doing it, why they're doing it. All of that is essential to build a function in place here that aligns both teams. And the last step here, super important, no feedback loop. So ensuring there's a feedback loop between ops and digital and making sure we have communication that's clear between the two teams. Digital kind of telling ops, hey, this program worked great. Here's why this one wasn't working so well. Here's why. Kind of having that balance between um, what's working, what's not working, and how CS ops teams especially can build, engage, iterate, and change based on that. So ops needs to know how to do that, right? So having a feedback loop, we had things like stakeholder meetings. We had digital CS leaders a lot of times in meetings with us, talking about the things they want to see and things that can be improved. So I think that's a crucial step and ensuring that there's feedback and that this can be really a two-way motion. So let's scale smarter together. And my quote here is digital CS without ops is noisy, and CS ops without digital is under leveraged. As I talked about earlier, digital CS can do great things. It's meant to do great things, but sometimes it can be a challenge. Too many things sent out, unclear on the messaging, not consistent, not concise. Ops will help you tighten that up. Ops will give you the way to do that the right way. CS ops without digital, you don't know your impact. Digital is a truly great way to show and measure the impact of ops, as I discussed earlier. This is the way you build it and build it the right way. True scale means strategy, systems, and smart automation all working together to build something great and to build something scalable. So, thank you. Thank you for listening. Let's keep the conversation going. I love to connect. Here's my LinkedIn, Substack. I write about this stuff pretty frequently. And again, I mentioned the podcast I was on with Alex. Please give it a listen when you can and reach out.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Justin. We do have a few questions for you in the chat. The first one is, what kind of nurture flows would you build based on community data? We just kicked off customer community and we have a ton of data, but how do you effectively use it?
Yeah, community data, it can be very powerful. And I think when you are thinking about what customer communities are doing and the way that customers can interact with each other, I think we kind of took that first level of it of here's how many comments, here's how many posts, here's how much activity these customers are doing and kind of what their focuses are. And then trying to think of ways and kind of steps you can build to engage in that way, right? So this is kind of where you can partner with somebody like marketing to reward customers for their engagement or their activity. So you can think about things like, hey, we saw that you were really active in answering questions, or you're really becoming subject matter expert in this topic. So we'd love to feature you, or we'd love to share a story of something you've done, or build a case study around that. So it's about leveraging that data to then build that stronger type of relationship where they're going to feel empowered and sticky. And ultimately, again, it's about helping the customer understand that what they're doing is important and that you see that.
Next question for you, Justin. Could you share more details about the automated health score, such as what data points you considered more important, etc.?
Yeah, so the automated health score is something that we built and we tested and it changed and there was many different versions of this over time. Um, at first, so when you think about it, we scaled up and down. So the own named CS teams, they still wanted that sentiment score to be included. So that was still a part of their score, but there was usage data, consumption data, there was support data, there was engagement data. So by this time, we had enough data in kind of those different buckets to build a full automation. And when I say engagement data, I mean like NPS surveys, email opens, email clicks. If we had a way to track in-app behavior, things like that, you could leverage that data into a what we call engagement score. So you could see how much those customers were actually interacting with your content, things like that. So that was one major aspect of it. And the other aspect was the usage data or consumption data, depending on the product type and the type of licensing and the way you're able to measure that. So being able to kind of grasp those two different buckets, three different buckets, and kind of combine them and build a true automated score was kind of our version one. And that we kind of linked that to potential health risks and kind of red, yellow, green, where they were, and then kind of updated it, changed the weights, changed the scoring over time to correlate more accurately to churns.
Justin, how has the partnership between ops and digital worked for you at other organizations? Who owned what and when during the customer journey?
So it's been different at different companies. And a lot of time it's ops, again, owning the systems, owning the process. And say we built out a digital team and they have a book of business. They want to start building a journey around that. So you partner with them, you help talk through this with them. What is that going to look like? What is the content going to be? What are the goals for each communication type? And then you kind of either you're driving that bus of building, deploying, managing the campaigns, or the digital team says, we're ready to do that. We want to be enabled in that, give them the training, give them kind of the ability to have some access in a Gainsight, for example, where they can kind of build those journeys, build that automation, and kind of have that ability to make changes there. So it depends on how mature your organization is, how comfortable you are with CSMs kind of having that technical aspect to it. So I've seen it work where, like I said, we owned a lot of it as the ops team, or the digital team was taking more responsibility for kind of that technical piece.
Justin, could you share how you got buy-in from those external teams to help consolidate your tools and avoid sprawl?
Yeah, so like I said, we started small. We built things that were quick wins, that were quick ways, especially for ops to show the value, to show that when you launch a campaign, say it was around renewals and it was X amount of days out, this is how many customers then renewed, right? So we could literally correlate the work, the action, the digital motions that we did to true customer outcomes. So those were our quick and kind of first wins. And by being able to show that we could do all that with, say, one tool, like a Gainsight or something, that was really helped buy in the idea and the kind of tool collaboration and the kind of unification of that system to then be able to build larger things on top of that.
Awesome. And then last question for you. Could you provide examples of effective feedback loops between ops and digital teams that have led to improved outcomes?
Yeah, so again, a lot of it is meetings, feedback, stakeholder management, being able to kind of give those digital teams an avenue to share their input, share their thoughts, scheduling sessions out, having them including in your planning sessions and the things you're building. So that's one way that we were able to get true direct feedback, kind of interviewing them and asking them those questions. Another way is we actually would send out literal surveys so we could give them the opportunity to pr give us tangible feedback to say, here are the campaigns that we think are working well, and here's why. Here's the things that we think we could work on. Here are our priorities. So giving a true workflow and a true documented way to have that tangible data gave us the ability to say, okay, great, now we can take this, look at it, run with it and build based off of that.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Justin. There are no more questions. So with that, we are at the end of our session. The recording of this session will be available early next week in our resource hub, and all summit attendees will be notified when the resource hub is live. Thank you to our wonderful speaker for joining us today, and thank you everyone else for attending. And
Thanks,
yes,
everyone.
both parts of the recording will be available. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.